They say the suburbs are where dreams go to die. For me, the perfectly manicured lawns and identical beige houses of Plano, Texas, were supposed to be where my dreams came to life. A big house, a loving husband, and eventually the sound of little feet pattering on the polished hardwood floors. From the outside, Sean and I had it all. He was a rising star in the Dallas tech scene, handsome, charismatic, the kind of guy who could charm a rattlesnake. I was a graphic designer with a flourishing freelance business, the supportive wife, the woman who kept our minimalist, Joanna Gaines-inspired home looking like a magazine cover. We were the couple everyone wanted to be. We were a beautiful, perfect, tragic lie. Our story, or at least the beginning of its end, started not with a bang, but with a whisper. A quiet, clinical whisper in a doctor's office, then another and another. For 5 years, our lives were dictated by a cruel and unforgiving calendar. Ovulation tracking apps, temperature charts, injection schedules, and the 2-week wait that felt like a lifetime suspended in a nauseating blend of hope and dread. Each month ended the same way, with a single pink line on a plastic stick and a fresh wave of grief that threatened to drown me. At first, Sean was my rock. He'd hold me as I cried in the bathroom, whispering, "We're in this together, Janie. It'll happen when it's meant to happen." He'd bring me ice cream and tell me I was the only thing that mattered. But after the 3rd year, the cracks started to show. His comforting words became hollow platitudes. His embrace felt distant. He stopped coming to the fertility appointments, blaming last-minute meetings at his office downtown. "You can handle it, babe," he'd say, his eyes already glued to his phone. "Just text me what the doc says." The pressure was immense, a physical weight on my chest. His mother, Queen, a formidable woman with a steel magnolia exterior and a tongue to match, made it her personal mission to remind me of my wifely duties at every Sunday dinner. "You know, Sean comes from good, strong stock," she'd say, passing the mashed potatoes with a pointed look. "My George," she'd say, referring to her husband, "only had to look at me, and I was pregnant with Sean. Some women are just blessed." Her words were little poison darts, and Sean never, not once, defended me. He'd just give a tight, uncomfortable laugh and change the subject. The distance between us grew into a chasm. Our home, once filled with laughter and dreams, became a silent, sterile museum of a happy marriage. The nursery we'd painted a hopeful shade of pale yellow remained empty, its door permanently closed. It was a monument to our failure, to my failure. At least that's what I was led to believe. The breaking point, the moment my world shattered into a million pieces, came on a Tuesday, a completely unremarkable, soul-crushingly ordinary Tuesday. I'd just gotten the call from the clinic. Our 4th IVF cycle had failed. I was sitting on the edge of our king-sized bed, the phone still in my hand, tears streaming down my face in silent, hot tracks. I felt empty, scraped out, a shell of the woman I used to be. Sean walked in, loosening his tie. He didn't even look at me. He just tossed his briefcase onto a chair and started unbuttoning his shirt. "So?" he asked, his voice cold, detached. I couldn't speak. I just shook my head, a sob catching in my throat. He sighed, a sound of pure, unadulterated frustration. He turned to face me, and the look in his eyes was one I'd never seen before. It was pure contempt. "Of course it didn't," he sneered. "Why would it? 5 years, Jane. Tens of thousands of dollars down the drain for what? Nothing. Because it turns out I married a defective woman." The air left my lungs. "Sean, don't." "Don't what?" he shot back, his voice rising. "Don't state the obvious. I have a legacy to build. I need an heir. My parents are asking questions. My friends are all on their 2nd kid. And what do I have? I have a barren wife." Barren. The word hung in the air, ugly and sharp. It sliced through me, severing the last thread of hope I'd been clinging to. He didn't just say it. He spat it at me. It was a verdict, a condemnation. He saw my deepest vulnerability, the source of my most profound pain, and he twisted it into a weapon to destroy me. In that moment, the man I loved ceased to exist. In his place stood a cruel, callous stranger, my world shattered into a million pieces. The man I loved used my deepest vulnerability as a weapon. If you know what it feels like to be completely broken by someone you trust, hit that subscribe button right now so we can build a community that lifts each other up. If you don't subscribe, I just hope you never have to face that kind of darkness alone. Maybe you can tell me in the comments why you think it's okay to leave someone in that kind of pain. From that day on, the abuse became a daily ritual. He weaponized my grief, Every argument, every disagreement ended with him throwing my infertility in my face. When I burned the toast, it was, well, it's not like you can do the one thing you were put on this earth to do, so why should I expect you to handle a toaster? When I was too tired for one of his corporate networking events, it was, what are you so tired from? It's not like you're chasing a toddler around all day. He was gaslighting me, making me believe I was worthless, that my entire value as a woman was tied to my broken womb. And the worst part? I started to believe him. I became a ghost in my own home. I stopped seeing friends, stopped taking on new design clients. I would spend days in bed, the curtains drawn, drowning in the shame he manufactured for me. He wanted me broken. He wanted me isolated. He wanted me to believe I was lucky he was still there, that no other man would ever want a barren woman like me. About 2 months after the Barren comment, I hit rock bottom. I was scrolling through Instagram, a special kind of self-torture, looking at pictures of baby announcements and gender reveals, when a photo popped up. It was from a woman named Michelle, someone I vaguely knew from Sean's circle. It was a picture of her at a winery, and in the reflection of her sunglasses, I could see the person taking the photo. It was a man in a blue, custom-tailored shirt, the exact same shirt Sean had worn to a business trip in Austin that weekend. My blood ran cold. I went down a rabbit hole, my fingers flying across the screen. Michelle's profile was public, photos of fancy dinners, weekend getaways to Fredericksburg, boat trips on Lake Travis. There were no pictures of them together, but the clues were there. The same bottle of wine Sean had brought home, claiming it was a gift from a client. The same view from a hotel balcony he had sent me, saying how much he missed me. It wasn't just a suspicion, it was a cold, hard fact. He wasn't just cruel, he was a cheater. And he was using my infertility as a smokescreen to cover his tracks. Something inside me snapped. The grief that had paralyzed me for so long began to curdle, hardening into something else, something cold, sharp, and resolute. Fury. I wasn't just sad anymore, I was pissed, royally, incandescently pissed. He had made me the villain in our story, the broken, inadequate wife, all while he was living a double life. I decided to make one last appointment. Not for us. For me. I found a new specialist, a highly recommended doctor at a private clinic in the Dallas Arts District. I didn't tell Sean. I paid for the consultation in cash. I needed a final definitive answer. I needed to know, for my own sanity, what was wrong with me. I walked into that sterile office expecting to have my worst fears confirmed, to be handed a medical file that officially branded me as broken. Dr. Evans was a kind, older woman with empathetic eyes. She went over my entire file, all 5 years of tests, procedures, and heartbreaking failures. She listened patiently as I recounted my story, the hope, the despair, and my husband's recent cruelty. She ran a new series of tests, some I'd never had before. A week later, I was back in her office, my hands clammy, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. She looked at me over the top of her glasses, her expression unreadable. "Jane," she began, her voice gentle, "I've reviewed everything. Your original files and the results of our new tests. There is absolutely nothing wrong with your fertility. You are a perfectly healthy 34-year-old woman. Your egg reserve is excellent. Your uterus is, and I quote the radiologist, a textbook example of perfection. You are fully capable of conceiving and carrying a child to term." I stared at her, uncomprehending. "What? But the IVF, it never worked. We tried everything." "Yes," she said, leaning forward, "which is why we ran a full panel on your husband's old samples. And we also looked at some basic medical history. Jane, the problem isn't you. It has never been you. Your husband Sean has what's called azoospermia. He produces zero sperm. It's a result of a severe case of mumps he had as a teenager, which he noted on his intake form 5 years ago. He is, for all intents and purposes, sterile." The doctor's words hung in the air, rearranging the entire reality of my marriage. He was the one who was sterile. He had known. He had known for 5 years. Every needle I'd stuck in my belly, every invasive procedure, every hormonal mood swing, every tear I'd cried, it was all for nothing. He had watched me inject myself with hormones, go under anesthesia for egg retrievals, and crumble with every negative pregnancy test, knowing it was all a pointless, cruel charade. He had let me blame myself, hate my own body. He had called me barren. He had called me defective. All to protect his own fragile ego. He had lied for years. A cold fury started to burn where my sadness used to be. "Do you believe in karma? If you do, subscribe and let's watch it unfold together. If not, tell me in the comments why you think people should get away with lies that destroy lives. I walked out of that clinic a different woman. The weak, sobbing Jane was gone. In her place was a woman forged in betrayal and rage. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I went home and started to plan. A quiet divorce was too good for him. An angry confrontation would give him the satisfaction of seeing me hurt. No. He had built his entire identity on this image of success, of being the perfect husband, the man who had it all. He had humiliated me in private for years. I was going to humiliate him in public. I wasn't just going to leave him. I was going to dismantle the entire empire of lies he'd built on my heartbreak. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Denzel who operated out of a small office in Deep Ellum. I gave him Michelle's name and a timeline. It took him less than a week. The pictures he produced were damning, kissing her in his car in the parking garage at his office, checking into a boutique hotel in Bishop Arts, holding hands at Clyde Warren Park. He wasn't just having an affair, he was building a second life, a life where he was, no doubt, the victim, chained to a wife who couldn't give him the one thing he wanted. Denzel also did a background check. He found out that Sean was being considered for a huge promotion at his company, Chief Operating Officer. The announcement was to be made at the annual company awards dinner in 3 weeks. The dinner was a massive black tie affair held at the Jewel Hotel downtown. His entire family, his colleagues, the CEO, everyone who mattered in his carefully curated world would be there. It was perfect. I spent the next 3 weeks playing the part of the dutiful, broken wife. I was quiet, subservient. I let his insults wash over me. He mistook my silence for defeat, my compliance for resignation. He was more arrogant than ever, preening about the upcoming promotion, talking about the new corner office he was going to get. He even had the audacity to say, maybe with the COO salary, we can afford to look into surrogacy, find a woman who can actually do the job. He smirked as he said it, enjoying his own cruelty. I just smiled faintly and said, whatever you think is best, dear. He had no idea he was talking to a ticking time bomb. I contacted a top-tier divorce lawyer and got all my ducks in a row. I quietly moved my money into a separate account. I packed my personal belongings into boxes and had them moved to a storage unit. I found a new apartment in a different city, a place he would never find. I prepared my exit strategy with military precision. The final piece of my plan was an envelope, a simple, elegant, cream-colored envelope. Inside, I placed 3 things. First, a notarized copy of Dr. Evans's full report, with the part about his irreversible sterility highlighted in yellow. Second, an 8x10 glossy photo, taken by Denzel, of Sean and Michelle in a passionate kiss outside the hotel. On the back, I wrote the dates of their little business trips. The third and final item was a single sheet of paper. On it, I had written in my best calligraphy, "Congratulations on the promotion. You're right, I am Barren. I can't bear liars, cheats, or cowards. Enjoy your legacy." The night of the awards dinner was electric. Sean was on top of the world. He wore a custom Tom Ford tuxedo and a smug grin. He paraded me around the ballroom, his hand on the small of my back, a possessive gesture for the benefit of his boss, George, and his colleagues. I wore a stunning, blood-red dress, a revenge dress. I smiled, I made small talk, I played the part of the adoring wife to perfection. His mother, Queen, cornered me by the bar. "You look lovely, Jane," she said, her eyes scanning me with faint disapproval. Though perhaps a more subdued color would be appropriate, given your situation. I just smiled at her, a real, genuine smile for the first time in months. "Oh, I think it's perfect for the occasion," I said. The dinner dragged on. Speeches were made. Awards were given out. Finally, it was the main event. The CEO, George, took the stage. He gave a glowing speech about leadership, integrity, and family values, all while looking directly at Sean. Then he announced it. "It is my great honor to announce our new Chief Operating Officer, Shawn Michaels." The room erupted in applause. Sean stood up, basking in the glory. He kissed me, a dry, performative peck on the cheek, and whispered in my ear, "See, this is what real success looks like. Now try to look happy for me." He walked to the stage, shaking hands, a king ascending his throne. That was my cue. As he reached the podium and the applause began to die down, I stood up from our table. I picked up my clutch and the cream-colored envelope. I didn't rush. I walked calmly, gracefully towards the stage. A few people looked at me, curious. Sean saw me approaching, and his smile faltered for a second. a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He probably thought I was going to make a scene, to cry or congratulate him. I didn't even look at him. I walked right up to his mother, Queen, who was seated at the front table with his father. I leaned down and spoke in a clear, low voice that only she could hear. Queen, Sean wanted you to have this. He said it was very important. I placed the envelope in her perfectly manicured hand. She looked from the envelope to me, her brow furrowed in suspicion. I just gave her another brilliant smile and said, "It's about the heir you've been waiting for." Then I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I walked straight out of the ballroom, through the opulent hotel lobby, and out into the cool Dallas night. I could feel hundreds of eyes on my back. My heart was pounding, a mix of terror and exhilarating power. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. If your heart is pounding too, you know what to do. Subscribe. Don't leave me to do this alone. If you choose to click away now, you'll never know the ending, and honestly, you'll be siding with the villain of this story. I didn't see the immediate aftermath, but Denzel, who I'd paid extra to have a drink at the hotel bar, filled me in on the details later. He said Queen opened the envelope right there at the table. Her face went from confused to shocked to ashen white. Her hand flew to her mouth. She shoved the contents at her husband, George, whose jovial face turned to stone. All this was happening while Sean was starting his acceptance speech. He was thanking the board, his mentors, and then he started on his family. "I have to thank my incredible parents," he was saying, "and of course my beautiful supportive wife, Jane. Through all of our struggles, she has been my rock." It was at that moment that his mother, Queen, let out a sound. Denzel described it as a guttural cry, a mix of a gasp and a sob. It was loud enough to cut through the polite silence of the room. Everyone turned to look at her. Sean stopped his speech, looking utterly bewildered. "Mom, are you okay?" Queen stood up, her entire body trembling with rage. She was holding the picture of Sean and Michelle. She screamed, her voice echoing through the grand ballroom. "You liar! You filthy, disgusting liar!" Chaos erupted. People were murmuring, pulling out their phones. George, Sean's father, was trying to pull his wife back into her seat, his face a mask of fury and embarrassment. Sean was frozen on the stage, his face pale, looking like a deer in the headlights. The CEO was looking on in horror. Queen was not to be silenced. She started waving the doctor's report in the air. "He lied to us. He lied to everyone. He told us she was the problem. My son is sterile. He's a fraud." That was it, the final nail in the coffin of his perfect life. The word sterile echoed in the silent room. Sean's carefully constructed world imploded in the most public and humiliating way imaginable. He was exposed not as a powerful executive, but as a weak, deceitful man who emotionally abused his wife to cover his own insecurity. I was already halfway to Austin by then, my phone turned off, the windows down, listening to Taylor Swift's "Look What You Made Me Do" at full volume. I drove until the Dallas skyline was just a faint glow in my rearview mirror. I didn't stop until I reached my new apartment, a bright, airy space that was all mine. The next day, I turned my phone back on. It was a war zone. Hundreds of missed calls and texts from Sean, his parents, his friends. They ranged from begging to threatening to accusing. I blocked them all. I read the gossip columns online. The story was everywhere in the Dallas business community. Tech exec's promotion gala ends in scandal. Sean was fired, of course. The company couldn't have a COO whose family values were a complete sham. His reputation was ruined. Michelle, it turned out, dumped him the second the story broke. Apparently, she had been under the impression that he was about to leave his infertile wife for her. My divorce was swift and uncontested. He had no leg to stand on. I took half of everything, sold the beige house in Plano, and never set foot in Dallas again. I'm living in Austin now. I have a thriving design business, a beautiful apartment overlooking the city, and a rescue dog named George, a little private joke for myself. I'm in therapy. I'm healing. Some days are still hard. The phantom pains of those 5 years of hope and loss still visit me sometimes, but they are getting fewer and farther between. The scars are there, but they are a reminder of the battle I won, not the wounds that almost killed me. I learned that my worth is not determined by my ability to have children. My worth is not determined by any man. My worth is inherent. I am not barren. I am boundless. I walked away from that explosion and never looked back. I'm free now and building a life he can only dream of. My story is proof that you can rise from the ashes. If this story gave you any strength or hope, the single best way to pay it forward is to subscribe so this message can reach someone else who's still in the dark. If you're still here and haven't subscribed, I genuinely want to know why in the comments. What part of this journey didn't resonate with you? Help me understand, because we all deserve to have our stories heard, and we all deserve to be free.